Sunday's game is the difference between a manageable, understandable kickoff to a new program or a flat-out bad beginning. We start there. This is Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? I am your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, been covering this football team for the past 16 years. Also, co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles and a sports talk show host veteran. As a reminder, we're going to go live on Sunday right after the game on YouTube, so don't miss out on that live post game after the game on Sunday. On today's show, though, we'll tell you how Drake Maye can have a very successful Sunday, and we'll tell you why we feel good about this Pats defense putting together their most complete game of the season against Carolina. But first, it's time for this team to make a point. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud partner, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Week 4 is not a must-win. I'll never go into the 4th week of the football season saying this is a must-win, unless maybe you start 0-3 and you think you're a contending football team. But for the Patriots, I'm not walking into Sunday saying this is a must-win, win-or-go-home situation. It's just not the case. But if you are building the program correctly, if you are doing exactly what you want to do, this is a game that you win. If you're Mike Vrabel, this coaching staff, these players, this is a game that you win. It is a statement of progress that you're going in the right direction, especially coming off that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. What we saw last weekend was inexcusable. 5 turnovers, 1 too many flags, a team that came out flat at home. Inexcusable. I don't care if you're one of the worst teams in the league, one of the best teams in the league. Turning the football over 5 times is egregious. It's ridiculous. And you can't come out on Sunday against the Panthers after that game last weekend against the Steelers and look like you're flat, look like you couldn't care less. You can't do it. Can't do it, won't do it. Clean it up. This has to look like a cleaner operation on Sunday. Be a serious program. Show me, show your fans, show everybody else in the world that cares about football. Show every single one of them that you are a competent football team. Because last weekend, that was not competency playing out. It just wasn't. So be a serious program, like I thought we were going to see with Mike Vrabel. It's been an underwhelming start. It's still early. They can figure things out, and I think they are going to figure things out, but that starts this Sunday. I mean, you need to start winning games at home. How bad have the Patriots been at home? Mike Reese had a note over the last day or two. Patriots are 3-16 at home since 2023. 3-16 at Gillette Stadium. It's embarrassing. Here's the good news. The Panthers, during that same stretch of time, the last 19 games, the Panthers are 2-17 on the road in that span. So the last 19 home games for the Patriots, 3-16. Last 19 away games for the Panthers, 2-17. You cannot allow a team that has won 2 of their last 19 games walk into Gillette Stadium, 2 of the last 19 games on the road, walk into Gillette Stadium and beat you. You just can't let that happen. You have the better quarterback. Drake Maye is a better quarterback than Bryce Young. And we'll get into Bryce Young a little bit later. We'll get into what Drake Maye has to do on Sunday to be successful, because I do think there is going to be opportunity against this Panthers defense. It's not an easy defense to deal with, but I do think Drake Maye can do some things on Sunday that will all make us very happy. You have the better quarterback. Home field advantage against the team that can't win on the road with the better quarterback. This is the type of game that you win. This is the type of game that you take care of the football. Your quarterback takes care of the football. He proves, the team proves, that they are better than what they looked last week. You have the more talented team. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you either of these teams are very talented because they're just not. But if you're looking at the preseason rankings and you're looking at these rosters and you're trying to, rank all 32 teams, the Patriots would be above the Panthers in pretty much every single ranking that you look at from just a pure talent standpoint. They're the more talented team. I mean, the Panthers were dying to sign Milton Williams. In the 23rd hour, as we know, Milton Williams decides to go to the Patriots because the Patriots upped their offer. But the Panthers need talent. They're scratching and clawing, trying to find that talent in a similar fashion to the Patriots. But the Patriots had a better offseason than the Panthers. Patriots, I think, had a better draft than the Panthers. They are the more talented team. So when you start to look at this in totality from 30,000 feet, coming off that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, at home for the second straight week, you want to prove to your fans that you can win in front of them, and you have a team coming in that hasn't won on the road much at all the last couple of years with the less talented quarterback and the less talented team. Oh, and by the way, even though it's been an underwhelming start for Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff, I would still take Mike Vrabel over Dave Canales. And I like Dave Canales. I think he could be a good coach, but I would still take Vrabel. I would still take Josh McDaniels. Now, the defensive coordinator, not really the defensive coordinator for the Patriots, as we know. Terrell Williams is not calling the plays. It's, again, going to be Zach Core. But I would still take this Patriots coaching staff over this Panthers coaching staff. So you've got the better staff. You've got the better team. You've got the better quarterback. You're at home. This is a game that you should win. It feels like, again, I would say have to win, but it's not really a must win. But this is a game that you absolutely should unequivocally win on Sunday. And then you got to think about what the next game is, because that also lends importance to what happens on Sunday. Imagine this. The Patriots end up losing on Sunday to Carolina. Let's just paint the picture. You lose to Carolina on Sunday after you had that ridiculous offensive performance, fumbling and stumbling and bumbling on offense against the Steelers, just giving them that game. Now you've lost back-to-back games against teams that you should have beat. The only win on the season that you have is down in Miami. And I'm sure people will say the only reason why you have that win is because Devon Achane steps out of bounds. Now, the Patriots would have gotten the ball, and who knows what happens after that. But the Miami Dolphins would have certainly had the lead if Achane doesn't step out. And we all know what happened against Vegas in week 1. And you could be looking at a 1-3 record heading to Buffalo to play Josh Allen and the Bills on Sunday Night Football. 1-3 going to Buffalo for Sunday night. Now, I'm not going to sit here and guarantee a 1-4 start, but it certainly feels like that would be the case. And instead of being maybe, 4-1, 3-2, whatever it would be, you're sitting there at 1-4 trying to figure out what you truly are. Now, let's paint the other picture. You go into Sunday, you take care of business, you beat the Panthers, you get back on track, you show the world that the Pittsburgh Steelers game was an anomaly. The only reason why you lost that game is because you turned the ball over 5 times. You take care of your business at Gillette Stadium. You beat Carolina, and then you go into Buffalo for Sunday night at 2-2, at 500, which is pretty much where a lot of us thought the Patriots would be at the end of the first month. Now, I thought they'd beat the Raiders. Before the season kicked off, I thought they'd beat the Raiders. I thought they'd lose to the Dolphins. When Aaron Rodgers signed with the Steelers, I didn't love their chances against the Steelers. I loved their chances last week after watching the Steelers. But before the season kicked off, we said 2-2 pretty much, right? If you could end the first month of the season at 2-2, you'd feel pretty good about it. 1-3, not so much. 1-3, the way the team has lost some games, definitely not so much. The assignment on Sunday is for the Patriots to make that Pittsburgh game look like a blip on the screen. Make it look like a blip, a speed bump. No big deal. A freakish end. Say, oh, well, hey, 5 turnovers. When's that going to happen again? And we were still in the game. Sunday, make a statement. Show your progress and tell everybody that Pittsburgh was just an unfortunate slip up. And now your program is going to be cleaner. Your team is going to play better and more disciplined as you head into that Buffalo game on Sunday night. That's the mission. All right, let's get to Drake Maye. Drake Maye will have his opportunities to ball out on Sunday, but we'll tell you why he needs to proceed with caution. That's coming up. This is Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. There's always that spot in the neighborhood that comes alive every Sunday during football season. You know what I'm talking about. Everyone's in team colors. The energy is incredible, and it feels like the entire block is in there cheering together. Kind of place where you walk in and everyone knows your name. The staff are like family. They've been serving this community for years. Those local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Even though it was a very tough loss against Pittsburgh last week, Robert Spillane put together his best game as a Patriot. Spillane spearheaded a defense that kept the Steelers to 1 first down in the middle quarters and kept the Patriots in the game despite 5 turnovers. Spillane finished with 15 tackles, 9 solo, 1 tackle for loss, some pressure, and an interception that began the third quarter. Robert Spillane came through, no hesitation, no delay. Now let's hope Spillane and the Pats get back on track this week and start a nice little streak. And just like Robert Spillane delivered for the Patriots, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Carolina's defense has had a little bit of a hot streak in the last 6 quarters. When you look at their second half against the Arizona Cardinals, and then you look at last week's game against the Atlanta Falcons, this defense is playing well. They're feeling very good about themselves, and they know they have to keep this competitive on Sunday, because they also know their offense is not necessarily an explosion waiting to happen, which we will get into during the next segment. But defensively, what you will see is you'll see some creeper pressure where it looks like the Panthers are going to blitz somebody at the line of scrimmage. That person drops off into coverage and they blitz somebody else from somewhere else. You'll see some of that. You'll see some changes in the coverage between the pre-snap and the post-snap. They did that to Michael Penix last week, confused Penix a couple of times. By the way, Penix was god-awful last week. Some of that was the Panthers' defense, but some of that was just Penix and the Falcons, who could not get out of their own way. It was a tough watch. Trust me when I tell you, I sacrificed myself and my time by watching that football game for all of you. So they'll change pre-snap to post-snap. They'll, quote unquote, spin the dial and all that good stuff. They play a lot of zone. They played more man last week, but they will play a lot of zone coverage. And so this is going to be a challenging defense because of what they can do and what they can morph into compared to, some of the other defenses that you've seen over the past couple of weeks. And that's going to be a challenge for Drake Maye. Now let's start with the people up in front, because Jared Wilson did not practice on Wednesday. Jared Wilson did not practice on Thursday. That feels like Jared Wilson will not play on Sunday. And if Jared Wilson does not play on Sunday, that means Ben Brown is next man up. And that's going to be a difficult situation because it did feel like Jared Wilson was making progress. He had a pretty good game last weekend against the Steelers. And you want to keep that chemistry and that cohesion between Will Campbell and Jared Wilson as much as you can because it's a rookie left side of the line, as we've discussed plenty of times. So Jared Wilson doesn't look like he's going to play. It's likely going to be Ben Brown. Now, the first priority, if you're Josh McDaniels and you're sitting in the offensive film room this week, the first name that you put on the board is Derrick Brown, because Derrick Brown is a devastating football player. He is a freak of a man, 6'5", who knows, 300 pounds, whatever he weighs. And he can move. He's strong. The Patriots' interior offensive line has to do a good job against Derrick Brown. And Josh McDaniels mentioned this with the media on Thursday and said, look, Derrick Brown, yes, he's a left defensive end, which would put him on the right side of the offensive line, but he does move. They will move him along the offensive line. So first of all, you've got to make sure you know where he's at. Second of all, you got to make sure that your interior offensive line does a good job. You know, Garrett Bradbury, Mike Owenu, Ben Brown, you got some questions there, right? Owenu's been inconsistent. Now, Garrett Bradbury had his toughest game of the year last week against the Steelers, but all in all, Garrett Bradbury's been pretty darn good. Jared Wilson, as I mentioned, was progressing, but now if you got Ben Brown, who is a natural center, not the biggest guy in the world, he's going to be their left guard, and you can see some of the issues there. So they have to do as good of a job as possible against Derrick Brown, because Derrick Brown will wreck a quarter. Derrick Brown will wreck a game, and you can't have it. So make sure that you are responsible against Derrick Brown. Do not let him take over. He is priority number one for this offensive line and this offense. Otherwise, I do think the Patriots' offensive line has the upper hand against Carolina. Carolina's defensive line is not necessarily awesome. I wouldn't even say it's really good. It's Derrick Brown, and then you got some questions. And for the offensive line of the Patriots, Ben Baldwin, the computer cowboy, posted the pass block composite ratings through week 3, and the Patriots are 7th. And that looks at Pro Football Focus, that looks at SIS, and that looks at ESPN. And then you put them all together, and you come up with this composite. I've used this the last couple of years. I think Ben Baldwin does a very good job. So the Patriots are 7th in that composite rating. Now, I will tell you, ESPN has them down to like 27th or 28th in pass block win rate, so ESPN doesn't agree. But I would say, all in all, if you're watching, eye test tells you they've been good. The offensive line has been pretty good, especially in pass protection. And this Panthers pass rush is not very good. They're 32nd, which the last time I checked was dead last, in the NFL in sack rate, under 1%. They are 30th in the NFL in pressure rate at 24.3%. And they don't blitz a lot. They're 24th in the NFL in blitz rate. So they're not getting to the quarterback. They're not sacking the quarterback. They're not blitzing a ton. And you've got Princely Uman-Mielen, along with Nick Scorton, a couple of other guys mixed in that you'll see on the edge, but they're not getting to the quarterback. So this should not be, because Derrick Brown is not necessarily the greatest pass rusher either. He's better against the run, but again, you just got to make sure you limit him. But this should not be a case on Sunday of the Panthers defensive line owning you, of the Panthers defensive line making life miserable on Drake Maye. He should not be scattered in the pocket. He should not be facing a ton of pressure like last week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, completely different defense. They blitz a ton. They're aggressive. And it felt like Drake Maye, especially early in that game, he was feeling that a little bit. But he should not feel that this week. If the Carolina Panthers get to Drake Maye, that is on the Patriots offensive line. As simple as that. Now, they do have good corners. Carolina Panthers corners are good. J.C. Horn is a really good football player. They have a secondary that will force turnovers. So, again, you got to take care of the football. You can't mess around. The linebackers are shaky. Safety, shaky. Patriots should have the advantage there with running backs and tight ends, especially running backs when Carolina plays man, which they don't do a ton of, as I mentioned earlier. But the Patriots should be able to attack the linebackers and the safeties. And for Drake Maye, this is all about the reads. Make the correct reads. Understand what Carolina's defense is throwing at you. The pre-snap, post-snap changes. Don't get fooled. Understand what you're seeing. Understand what you then see after the snap. Make the right read. Be patient in the pocket because Drake Maye should have time. And if you have time, you got to be patient. Don't rush. Don't try to squeeze footballs into incredibly tight spaces with good coverage. So make the right reads, be patient, and be efficient. And Drake Maye has been very efficient this year. His expected points added, when you look at the added adjustments, he is 8th in the NFL, according to Kevin Cole. Now, expected points added in the adjustments, it's, you adjust it or scale to account for factors that might bias a player or team raw EPA total. And Kevin Cole says the added adjustments with the total EPA there, Drake Maye's 8th. You got quarterbacks in the top 7 like, Jared Goff, Daniel Jones, who's been great, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert. Drake Maye's in that company. And the true indication of efficiency is, how do you do in expected pass situations? And Evan Lazar had this stat. Drake Maye is 3rd in EPA per play in expected pass situations. And in the pod earlier this week, I talked about Drake Maye's 3rd and 4th down work. Drake Maye is 1st in EPA per play on late downs. So take care of the ball. I think you'll have some opportunities with your tight ends. And Drake Maye should have a good day. If he makes the right reads, he's patient, and is efficient. The running back situation, who knows? I think we're going to see Travion Henderson start this game. I think you're going to see Henderson and Gibson with most of the carries. I expect, maybe this is a mistake by me, but I do expect Ramondre Stevenson to not play this weekend. Now, he might be active in case of injury, but I don't think he's going to play. We'll see if he does. And will the offensive line consistently block it up? Because the run game should have opportunities against this Panthers defense. They have not been good against the run. 30th in yards per play. They're 32nd, dead last in stuff rate. They're 25th in EPA per rush. Here's a key number. The Panthers' run defense, they're 21st in yards before contact allowed. Running backs are almost getting 1.5 yards before they're even touched. And Will Campbell is critical. Because if you look at what teams have done against Carolina, Carolina faces the 3rd highest run rate outside the offensive tackle. So lots of pitches, lots of tosses. That's what teams have done against the Panthers. They've had issues holding the edge. And of course, we all know, as I said earlier, Derrick Brown will be lined up on the right side for most of the day. So this should be a good day for Will Campbell to get out in front and block for his backs. Carolina is 15th in 3rd down defense, so right about the middle. So along with that and their cornerbacks, you want early down success, which means run the ball. And one more note, you got to finish drives. Carolina Panthers have the 7th best red zone defense in the NFL. Little bend, don't break-ish. So you got to finish drives. All right, we'll tell you how the Pats defense can shut down this Panthers offense as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's talk about Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes we know, they sweat all the details. And Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every single solitary model. Stunning detail that will bring you back to the Belichick dynastic runs in New England. Oh, that was fun. The good times. You could feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And here's something that's really cool, especially if you live up in the Northeast. All-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Confidence through almost any season. And we know how important that is up north. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. We're talking about Mazda. We're talking about detail. Mazda. Move and be moved. I do not fear this offense of the Carolina Panthers. I do not fear this offense. Now, I do like what they do. And I remind you, Sunday live post-game YouTube. And as you watch this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help us out. I do like the plan going into games by Dave Canales and this offense for the Panthers. They're going to give you a lot of looks. They will have shotgun with the split backs. They'll run some pistol when you have the quarterback in the shotgun with the running back directly behind the quarterback. They'll go under center a decent amount. They do have West Coast vibes. This is more of a West Coast offense, so you'll see under center, you'll see play action, you'll see bootlegs. It'll look familiar to you if you've been watching the Patriots the last couple of years. But inevitably, they've got Bryce Young. And I just don't think Bryce Young is the type of quarterback that can put his team on his back and say, all right, fellas, I'm carrying you to the promised land. I just don't think he's that type of guy. He has limited arm strength. He's only 5'10", so sometimes he has trouble when he's standing in the pocket. And what the Patriots have to do is they have to limit Bryce Young's ability to run. Keep him in the pocket. Don't let him loose. Don't let him extend. Don't let him scramble for first downs. Limit his legs. Because as a pure passer, he's not a guy that's going to dominate. At least I don't expect it. He's 26th in passer rating. He's 26th in completion percentage over expected at minus 5.2%. He's 27th in EPA. Analytically, he's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And he's not a guy that's going to take shots downfield. It's a lot of quick game. And it's a lot of short passes. It's a lot of in the middle of the field stuff. So you've got to make sure that you contain him in the pocket, get those arms up as defensive lineman because he's only 5'10", and just make his life miserable. And, I talked about this last week against the Steelers, same kind of deal against the Panthers. Carolina's offense, it just lacks explosivity. Bryce Young is 29th in the league in yards per attempt at 5.3. This offense is 30th in the league, yards per play. The only guy, especially if Xavier Legette is out and he hasn't been practicing because of a hamstring, didn't play last weekend, the only guy that brings explosiveness is Tet McMillan, somebody who we spent a lot of time talking about leading into the draft. Tet McMillan is the only explosive element in the pass game for the Carolina Panthers. And he's limited with a calf. He did return to practice on Thursday, but he was limited. And he is the only explosive element, but he's explosive. You got to make sure you take care of him. Nate Tice posted that McMillan is tied for the most 20-plus yard receptions this season with 6. And he will move around. You will see him line up in slot from time to time, so you've got to be aware. Again, Legette is dealing with a hamstring. Jalen Coker is on the IR with a quad. So it's Tet McMillan and Hunter Renfrow. That's what you're looking at. Those are guys you can cover. Those are guys that you can defend, especially if Christian Gonzalez comes back, which it certainly looks like he's going to. If you've got Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis on that field on Sunday, you should be able to do a good enough job against Tet McMillan and Hunter Renfrow. Don't let McMillan explode. Put the onus on Bryce Young. And as far as the trenches, the Patriots, I think, have the advantage. Like I said with the offensive line, I think the Patriots have the advantage with their defensive line against the Panthers' offensive line, especially in the interior. The Carolina Panthers have a backup center and a backup right guard right now, going through some injuries on that offensive line. So I'm talking to Milton Williams. I'm talking to Kyrie's Tonga. I'm talking to Christian Barmore. The interior of this defensive line should win consistently on Sunday. If they're doing their job, they're winning consistently. In Carolina, they got some weird run numbers. And I know Julian Council during the crossover said they want to run the football and establish the run. They've got some quirky numbers. Now, I do think that Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle are good backs. I do. I think they're good backs. I think they're good backs off the slow starts. But they're 25th in the NFL in yards per play when you look at run, 3.7, under 4 yards a carry. But they're not too bad in EPA at 14th. They're 31st in 10-plus yard runs, so they're not busting big chunks of yardage in their run game. But they're average with stuff rate, and they're actually in the top 10 in success rate when they run the ball. Now, they are also awful, and this goes to the offensive line. They're 28th in yards before contact per attempt. The offensive line is not getting pushed in the run game. And that's why the defensive line should win. The Patriots should win that matchup in the trenches. The interior defensive line should be a major headache for this Panthers offense. No doubt about it. Now, I also think you won't see a ton of pass rush because Dave Canales and this offense will get rid of the football quickly, a la Miami, a la Pittsburgh. So a lot of quick passes. But you should be winning up front, and you should absolutely win up front against this run game. Make them one-dimensional, limit Tet McMillan, and I'm not sure this offense can do a ton against you as long as you play responsible football. One more note. The dirty kickoffs, something to watch for. Carolina has this like knuckleball kickoff, and I was watching that game against Atlanta, and I'm telling you, Atlanta was a mess. It was a blooper reel. Dudes could not figure out how to get that kickoff. So you don't want that to swing a game. Here's my prediction. Patriots win 23-17. 23-17. They get back on track, 2-2, heading to Buffalo. All right, that wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Reach out to me on Twitter at NickCRadio. And don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Hit that like button and subscribe. And for your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast with Tyler the Madman Rowland and Tony Wiggins. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, a great start to your weekend, and we will see you on Sunday for a post-game live stream.